On the Common Link Theory by Fahd Alhomoudi. The third transmitter, Abdurrahman al-Muharibi, who died in 295, was a Kufan of the fifth rank and was identified as a mudallis. Of him, Ibn Ma'in said he narrates anomalous hadiths from famous transmitters. Abu Hatim explains it in a more depth. He writes, Al-Muharibi is an honest transmitter, but he narrates anomalous hadith from anonymous people, which invalidate all his narrations. It is possible that Al-Muharibi narrated this hadith via Sayf, and that Sayf could be the common link, assuming that Ammar and Al-Muharibi narrated this isnad through him, but neglected to account for this narration. The fourth transmitter, Sayf ibn Muhammad, who died in 195, was a Kufan who had lived in Baghdad. He was Sufyan's nephew, but did not narrate this isnad from Sufyan directly. Regarding Sayf's rank amongst muhaddiths, he has no credibility whatsoever. For example, Ibn Ma'in, Ibn Hanbal and Dhahabi accuse him of being a liar, and Ibn Hanbal adds that Sayf used to fabricate hadiths. An-Nasa'i and Ad-Daraqutni consider Sayf to be matruk, rejected, of the 11th rank, thus indicating a very low level of reliability. In addition to stringently criticizing him, the muhaddiths disregarded all of his hadiths, with Abu Hatim saying, none of the hadiths that Sayf narrated should be recorded. Of this particular hadith, Bukhari writes, Hadith Tubna Medina was not supported by a valid isnad. Ibn Adi mentions 6 hadiths from Sufyan that no one other than Sayf has transmitted. He also contends that Sayf fabricated and attributed even more hadiths to Sufyan, and that there are even more hadiths fabricated by Sayf but attributed to other muhaddiths. Most of what Sayf transmitted is not to be found in any other compilation of hadith, which indicates that he fabricated them. The fifth transmitter, Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Yamani, who died in 170, was said to have been an honest transmitter of the 4th rank, originally from Kufa, who then moved to Yamama, now known as Riyadh. But after losing all his books, he could no longer differentiate between the weak and strong hadiths, and with old age grew increasingly blind. As a result, when people recounted hadiths that were not his, he is reported to have acknowledged them, or perhaps due to his age, thought he had included them in his books. This explains why the majority of muhaddiths reject all his hadiths, among them Ibn Ma'in, An-Nasa'i, Bukhari, and Abu Hatim. Obviously, the hadith in question was one of those anomalous hadiths. Other hadiths narrated by Al-Yamani from the Abbasid Caliphs were considered anomalous and thus were rejected as well. The 6th transmitter, Abu Shihab Musa bin Nafi al-Hannat, who died in 172, was reported to have been an honest transmitter of the 4th rank, but his students damaged his credibility. As a result, Ibn Hanbal said of his hadiths that they were not common, غير مشاهير, a description used of weak hadiths, which explains why Ibn Qattan entirely refused to accept Abu Shihab's hadiths. Al-Khatib assumed that Abu Shihab did not narrate this hadith directly from Asim, but from Ammar or Sayf or maybe Muhammad ibn Jarir. This was because Abu Shihab's student Al-Hasan ibn Rabi' did not affirm that his teacher heard it directly from Sufyan, since the word he used to describe the transmission was an, meaning that there is a high probability that a transmitter was skipped between Abu Shihab and Asim. What we have learned from the foregoing biographical survey is that out of those 6 transmitters, only Ammar could plausibly be accused of being the common link. It is obvious that a few weak transmitters attributed the hadith to Sufyan, and the other 4 transmitters had heard the hadith from Asim, most likely via Ammar, though they skipped him in order to avoid having a weak link in their transmission. Since it is necessary to elucidate Ammar ibn Sayf's role more clearly in order to prove this hypothesis, I will present an in-depth account of his participation in hadith collection. To begin with, Ammar had poor credibility among muhaddiths, even though he was described as a righteous and considerate in terms of worship. His religious observation did not change the muhaddith's view much in regard to his reliability. Abu Zur'a and Abu Hatim state that Ammar's integrity was weak and ascribed him to the 8th rank. Abu Dawood indicates that Ammar was naive, while Ibn Ma'in said that even though Ammar was trustworthy as regards religious matters, his hadiths are worthless. Al-Ijli and Dhahabi confirmed that Ammar was trustworthy as a Muslim, while Abu Hatim says that even as he affirms that Ammar was weak in hadith, he narrated anomalous reports. Additionally, Ahmed al-Dhahabi said that Ammar translated anomalous hadith narrated by Ishaq and Muhammad ibn Wasil from Asim. Indeed, in the hadith Tubn al-Madina in particular, Ammar states, I heard Asim narrating it in a meeting where Sufyan was in attendance. In spite of the complexity of the isnads of this hadith, their analysis helped illustrate what Ammar was the common link, which is further strengthened by additional historical evidence. Stay tuned.